Coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware, SkyLake's running at IDF, Core M benchmarks, oil cooling 5K monitors you can afford, and oh yeah, Apple's got a phone and a watch. All that and more, it's all coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twitch.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 284, recorded September 11th, 2014. IDF, iPhone 6, X99, and you. This episode of Twitch is brought to you by iFixit. You can fix it, and iFixit makes it easy with step-by-step repair guides, high-quality replacement parts, and all the tools you'll need. For $10 off your purchase of $50 or more, go to ifixit.com/twit and enter the code TWITCH at checkout. Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. Twitch's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most exciting, most important, most intriguing, well, news about hardware. We talk about reviews, we talk about benchmarks, and of course, we like to answer your questions. My usual partner in crime, by the way, my name is Patrick Norton. My usual partner in crime, Ryan Shrout, is somewhere in the central coast of California, either learning about new hardware and visiting the aquarium, or being tortured by somebody that's really ticked off about his benchmarks. So joining me this evening will be Mr. Robert Heron, star of stage, screen, and HDTV reviews. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, thank you. Hey, I was pretty much not born, but I was raised in the Central Coast, San Luis Obispo County. So that's beautiful land.
You were built in a lab outside of Slowtown.
Pretty much. Conceived in Southern California, slowly drifting northward as time goes by. Currently residing in the Bay Area.
It happens.
Yeah.
You and me, East Bay Pride, go A's.
It's depressing. I don't want to talk about the A's.
So good for so long.
I love them, but
yes,
it's painful right now.
It is what it is. Hey, if you think you're having a bad day, remember today is September 11th. Your day could probably be a lot worse. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look at it, September 11, 2001. Just saying that. It has been a crazy week for news in general. You know, little things like after umpteen years of refusing to allow instant video to play on Android, suddenly Tuesday morning, Amazon decides to release the instant video client for all Android devices, so you no longer have to have a Fire device, which of course they did like 2 hours before the iPhone announcement, that keynote, which was taking place pretty much at the same time as the Intel keynote, the Intel Developer Forum. So it's been kind of crazy. iPhone 6 is out with the A8 processor, which is apparently faster than everything in the planet. This is not a Ruby screen, but apparently is an ion strengthened screen.
No
keep wanting to
Sapphire?
call it. No, excuse me, not Ruby. Yeah, not Ruby. No Sapphire. Sapphire is being used in the Apple Watch, which was announced at the same day, along with Apple Pay. And the thing it took me,
use it though on the button though, for the home button at least. That was
yes,
for the fingerprint reader. It has got a little sliver of it right there for covering it. Maybe on the
in
lens
front of the camera.
too.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I was hoping for some reason for a Sapphire screen on the iPhone 6, and it's not there. It's the thinnest iPhone. They've bumped the screens up in size. They're still in the 300 plus pixel Retina range for the pixels per inch on the screens. Yeah, 4.7, 5.5. Desperately needed update on the screen sizes. The camera sounds phenomenal. They're using some interesting technology in the sensor. You know, it's still 8 megapixel. It's still 1.5 micron. Elements in the sensor, but they're doing some stuff that looks like it's going to have absolutely phenomenal low light performance. I, for one, am excited to see it. And the prices aren't outrageous. And they've bumped up the capacity up to 128 gigabytes at the high end, 64 gigabytes in the middle. And I want to say did they start at 16? It was so long ago that announcement hit.
Probably. That's a good amount of storage though, because one of the things that drew me to Android was the fact that you have expandable storage, usually through an SD card slot, micro SD. So having 64 or 128 gig option, it's usually going to be enough for most folks. So nice to see.
It's pretty good. Yeah,
and that 4.7 size, that is like my sweet spot. So anything larger than that, it's really getting too big for me to carry around. Phablet level or whatever the hell that I hate that term.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because it's the same. It's roughly, it's a little bit bigger than a G3. It's like 5 millimeters longer than a Note 4/Note 3. You know, the LG's G3, their big claim to fame, and I should point out LG's sponsoring some Texilla episodes. So there's full disclosure. LG's going for their Quad HD experience, which is this insane 538 pixels per inch. On the iPhone, they just went for 1920 by 1080 for the 6 Plus resolution, 1334 by 750, which they call more than 720p. It was kind of funny, the description for that. A8 processor, M8 coprocessor, which is monitoring, you know, the all of the sensors, which they've added a barometer in on this round.
A lot of the developers I've talked to love the fact that that processor appears to be just a beast, and it should be really efficient as well. So I can't wait to see some of the great software updates. I'm looking forward to the new version 8 of iOS coming out anyway, just because I want to see how that works with the new hardware. And apparently that's going to drop pretty soon. Probably, well, I'm sure the devs are already getting a hold of it, but not everyone at least. But that's one of the big deals too, just to see a nice update. And I know a couple of people still holding on to their 4s and 4Ss who have been waiting for this one. And I think it's going to make them very happy. So
I bought a Motorola Moto G.
I took a SKU from you.
Motorola. Oh, it's great. Just because I didn't want to buy a 5S because I knew the 6 was coming, and I for one am extremely happy that I waited for that. Yeah, I mean the M8 coprocessor is looking at the gyroscope, accelerometer, barometer. They're claiming I think something in the neighborhood of a 25% improvement in graphics processing. There were some gaming demos that were really fantastic in the keynote. It's going to be really, really interesting. Yeah, iPhone 6 starting at $200 with a contract. It is not a bad deal for what you're getting. Cue another round of insane tweets about me either being an Android fanboy or an Apple fanboy, both of which apparently I was simultaneously on Tuesday of this week. Yeah, iPhone 6 from $199, 5.5-inch iPhone 6 Plus from $299. Pre-order starts September 12th. Deliveries, I assume, start on the 19th at 8 a.m. when they start selling them in the Apple stores.
This is America, people. Or you know what? Use whatever handset you love and enjoy. Get some pleasure out of it. That's all you have to worry about.
It's funny. So 128 gigabytes. No, wait, there it is. Verizon.
That would be pretty nice.
I want contract free. Contract free.
Yes.
It's going to be $749 for 16 gigabytes on the 6 Plus. 128 gigabytes is going to be $949. Go with a your basic 2-year contract. It's 16 gigs for $299, 128 gigabytes for $499. So the cost, it climbs rather quickly as you up the memory capacity on that one. Yeah, iPhone 5S is like $100, and I think the iPhone 5C comes in a box of Cracker Jacks now.
Aw. You know what? I didn't catch it, but did they get into anything else about updates for the fingerprint sensor and the fingerprint reader and incorporating that more? I guess that'll be more of an iOS 8 thing in terms of seeing that come full circle and be used by more applications. Because I would love to have like a third-party, this is probably an Android side of things, but I'd love to see third-party software for things like password management where you could just use your fingerprint to do quick logins and things like that, and to be able to manage all your passwords for all your websites and all your services and everything. So, I'm kind of curious. Password manager.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's especially given the, it was kind of sad that this came the week after the iCloud problems. When I say problems, that basically means the evil sex crimes where 4chan lurkers, cracked into accounts and threatened to, or social engineered their way into accounts and threatened to give, post famous people's naked selfies if they weren't paid off. But, it's pretty interesting that the Apple Pay. I also thought it was interesting that it's not iPay and it's not iWatch. It's Apple Watch and it's Apple Pay. But Apple Pay, we're basically talking about how this integrated hardware and integrated software. And they do a lot of smart things, right? There's single-use transactions for the credit card numbers. It's the near-field communications is now built into the iPhone 6, that technology they've been making fun of on Android devices for a while. You know, the idea that they're basically giving you an ID, like they don't actually keep your credit card number on the phone, whether you use it in iTunes or in take a picture of it with the eyesight camera. I think it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that works. The thing that there's a pretty good Time article pointed out was that, you know, they're like in 220,000 locations in the United States. Woo! That you can use your near field contact and wave your, you know, touch your phone and make your payment without exposing your ID, without exposing your credit card number, without, you know, la, la, la. Well, 220,000 credit card locations is like 2-point-something% of the credit card locations in the United States. So something like 97% of the locations that use credit cards are not currently able to use NFC. And they all have to be updated. Credit cards are a hot mess right now.
My Galaxy S3 has NFC on it, and the Android app since, or the Android OS since, I want to say 4.3, probably earlier than that, had tap to pay features built into it. But hell, if I've ever used it anywhere, and I've never actually been able to even set it up on my old phone. So I'm wondering.
Right.
I'd like to see that come full circle, because that's one device. Everyone keeps their mobile with them everywhere they go. And if you could tie that into payments and a trackable, it's like a trackable credit card in a sense, but a secure way of making payments with your mobile device, that should just happen. And if I don't have to pull another card out and I can use the device that's currently in my hand to do that, and it's safe and reliable, hopefully it just becomes widely adopted. That's long overdue. Between that and getting chips in credit cards and having, you know, be able to touch pay with a credit card as well in those same systems, we're just kind of behind the times compared to what Europe's up to in this regard, and with these devices and with credit cards in particular.
It's I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how that works out. You were the first person I knew with a Pebble watch. Were you excited about the Apple Watch at all?
You know, it didn't even faze me. I really I want to see some hands-on long-term reviews of it, because one, immediately every left-handed person I knew was upset.
Right.
It's like,
because the control is right. It's like the digital crown. It's the thing you've been waiting for. So essentially, you know, you're using the little button on the side to use it as a menu and stuff. It requires. Go ahead.
I was going to say, more people I know are excited about the Moto 360, but then there were issues about the battery not being as robust as it was when it was announced. It's like these are all first-generation products, and even looking at the Pebble, had I known the Pebble Steel was coming out, I probably would have held out for that. But I still have it. I still have my original Pebble. I love it, and I think these are useful devices, especially if you're the kind of person who's a little more active and you don't want the $700 cell phone necessarily on you, but you need to be able to link to it.
And that's part of the thing is some of the features on the watch aren't going to work unless you have an iPhone nearby.
Good point.
You know, so you're going to need this $700 device to do some of the more cool stuff.
Seeing a nice high resolution display, and if they can get battery life decent on these, I think any mobile device should last at least 48 hours of generally normal use between charges. I shouldn't have to charge something every day. And with watches, you think there'd be some sort of like kinetic recharging, or I don't know, maybe I'm just wishful on that one, but still, I think we accept shortened battery life as just, I don't know. I'm sick of that. And so whatever they have to do, either become more efficient in the processing or start kicking battery technology in the butt and getting that up to speed. Those are the things that will impress me more than just about anything else, and especially with mobile phones. Without requiring a giant battery pack on the back, I'd like the thing to last 2 days minimum. Basic stuff, usability. I think, and that is some sweet design, though. I will.
I think it's gorgeous. I was surprised that I posted that, and some people thought I have absolutely no taste in watches, and I was kind of laughing because I was like, well, you know, ever since I started typing for a living 15, 18 years ago, I stopped wearing watches because when I wore a watch, I had wrist pain, and when I took a watch off, I didn't have wrist pain. I'm so excited! I get my braces off next week. Hopefully, I'll get my siblings back. Yes.
Oh, congratulations!
Yes. Thank you.
It's been a long journey, man. You're gonna have beautiful teeth.
All I want to do is like, I'm just excited about being able to like bite into an apple and eat pizza without worrying about incurring additional dental expenses.
Oh, what's like the worst thing you can eat with braces? You just go for that, whatever it is.
I have a list, actually. I have a list of things I'm going to just sit down and eat in the corner of my house while ignoring my family. So in non-Apple news, Intel Developer Forum in 2014, keynote was on Tuesday, literally at the same time pretty much the Apple keynote. I like how Ryan put it, IDF 2015 is shaping up to be an interesting year for Intel's consumer processor product lines. So, you know, we don't really have a Broadwell chip, right? Broadwell, the successor to Haswell. We don't have a Broadwell desktop chip yet. They demonstrated SkyLake, which is the generation after Broadwell. Broadwell had a hitch in its giddy up while they were getting the 14 nanometer process up and running. So I think part of this was Intel going, look, we are running the next generation silicon that's for the second half of 2015 already. You know, it's the talk to Broadwell's TIC running on the 14 nanometer technology. You know, Intel says they're going to see big improvements, performance, power consumption, silicon efficiency. It's going to have, you know, more awesomeness. So they were actually running on stage. If you scroll down a little bit on that page, Burke, you'll see them running 4K video in a sort of mobile environment, a laptop, desktop, and that is the 3D Mark Firestrike benchmark. They didn't give any performance results, but just showing that it runs, you know, and so they're obviously very excited about SkyLake. They're obviously very happy that it's running. They could demonstrate it this early, you know, and Intel says, you know, we think we've got it sorted out down to 10 nanometers and beyond. I like the idea of 10 nanometers and beyond. So SkyLake's been taped out. Ryan posted his review a few days ago of the Core M processor lineup, or excuse me, his announcement. So they've announced essentially the Core M processor lineup using Broadwell Y. Quote, in a somewhat surprising fashion, Intel has decided to announce again the Core M processor family that will be shipping this fall and winter using the Broadwell Y system on a chip. Ryan was able to visit Portland and talk with the process technology and architecture teams. This was back in early August, talking about 14 nanometer Tri-Gate transistors, the package size on Broadwell Y, and quote, the goals for thinner fanless designs. And I think we're going to see a lot of that going on over the next year. But I think they're talking about like 9mm thin devices on that one. So these are, you know, 2-core, 4-thread chips running at like 800 to 1.1 gigahertz. You know, max dual-core turbo running at 2.6 gigahertz on the faster processor, 2 gigahertz on the slower processors. You know, 4 gigs of L3 cache, 1600 megahertz LPDDR3L memory, 3L3, and they all basically are priced out at about $281. So, you know, configurable TDP, so variable on that, up to 10 USB 2 1.1, up to 4 USB 3, 2 MUX, GPIO enhancements. A lot of interesting stuff going on there. And it's interesting, if you look at if you scroll down one more slide, Burke, you'll see the kind of architecture, the layout of the chip. And I thought it was interesting. Scroll one more down. There's one more picture a little bit farther down there. Bingo. Look at the processor graphics versus like the cores and the shared L3 cache, and then basically all of the interesting stuff on the left, like the display engine, the memory controller. But I just thought it's amazing. Like there's always more stuff to pack into there. And then I think Lenovo's ThinkPad Helix is going to be the first, or at least the first announced partner or product using that. So Intel shows, yeah, it's actually pretty cool. And then Ryan got hands-on at IDF with the Core M 5Y70, got some early production numbers. And where did it go? So Cinebench render test multi-thread. It was interesting, like 2.77 points, Core i3 4330, which is running at like 54 watts compared to the Core M 5Y70's 4.5 watts. So, you know, it's equivalent to like a Pentium G3 258 or an A10 6700 or an A8 7600. So it's delivering a lot of power, or a lot of performance for almost no power. Something that Ryan pointed out in an update, the previous version of this graph showed the TDP for the Intel Core M5Y70 is 15 watts, not the 4.5 watts listed here now. The reasons are complicated. It's interesting. Basically, the Intel Arc website lists the TDP of the Core M5Y70 as 15 watts, but it's only supposed to spike to that level occasionally. You know, when it's in its highest turbo boost mode. So that generally speaking, that the tablets, the TDP for the tablets only has to be like 4.5 to 6 watts. And that, quote, the very short 15 watt spikes can be dissipated without the need for extra heat sink surface because they are so short. So, you know, it's a pretty impressive processor in some ways, or certainly in terms of performance. And then you look at like the 3D Mark for ice storms versus like Core M5Y70, you know, it's like 45 or 46,000 on the 3D Mark 2013 ice storms versus 31,000 for the Tegra K1, 13,644 for the Atom Z3745 or the Apple A7. So, you know, it's basically 47% faster than the Tegra K1. And that's not a bad score for a power sipping part. So
I'm
7mm
like
thin tablets.
less than 5 watt TDP on some of these designs, and be able to run a full Windows load on something like that. That's pretty awesome. A, you get the battery life I'm always looking for, but B, you can have either a smaller device or a lighter device, or pack a bigger damn battery in the thing, and so it can run longer. So
or all
good
of the
stuff.
above.
Heck yeah.
I was pretty impressed by that. I also didn't actually see this while I was at IDF, but Intel was demonstrating XL710 Fortville 40 gigabit Ethernet and VXLAN acceleration. And this stuff is pretty enterprise grade, but I thought it was kind of crazy to look at what's going on with, because like, one of the things we looked at for Techzilla this week was there were a couple of companies displaying 10 gigabit Ethernet, and right now you're looking at $300 for a PCI Express adapter. You're looking at $100 a port for a switch that'll handle that. The company in question was Tahuti was actually showing off a Thunderbolt 2 10 gigabit Ethernet adapter that they expect to sell for about $250. So it's a fairly significant investment, but they were claiming numbers something like 16. I think they said like 16 minutes for a terabyte of data in terms of transfer rates. So basically those are some of the, you know, basically they're talking about software-defined networking and it running at 40 gigabits, which, you know, just kind of snapped my head back, you know. But the
Who do you think the big users of hardware like that are? Would it be like, say, render farm folks who are just moving tons and tons of data, or scientific computing? I'm sure too has a lot going on there, or any of the big supercomputing projects, period. Or just people moving a lot of data, apparently. So,
I would
say,
also
it's getting to the point where you could almost have the localized cloud storage in a sense, where you don't need storage in the device itself, at least on a local level, but to be able to provide that at speeds of like beyond SATA, just about. Right. that to me is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, so these are like, you know, the Xeons are primarily, if you're not buying, you know, a Macintosh desktop, you know, so the Xeons are going in servers. This would be like, so it's kind of funny when you look at this, when you look at the collection of boards, like one of these boards supports up to 2 40 gigabit Ethernet connections. Scott Michaud writes in the article, configurable to 4 10 gigabit Ethernets for ridiculous amounts of bandwidth. So these are high-end network controllers. These are for server farms. These are people doing huge amounts of network or moving huge amounts of data over the network, or dealing with just ridiculous numbers of clients moving small amounts of data over the network. I just thought the idea of like a software-defined network was like, oh, that's crazy pants. Crazy pants and awesome. Something Ryan's talked about a bunch on the show in the last year or two is Intel's intense emotional need and or desire to get a bigger chunk of the mobile market, because pretty much everything that involves a cell phone or a tablet in so many areas it includes an ARM processor design or some customized version of the ARM processor, including, I assume, the Apple A8, which has traditionally been an Apple custom version of the ARM processor. So Intel dropped the Intel Reference Design Program for Android, and if you use their reference design, their collection of parts, they will guarantee every time an Android point update comes out, they're guaranteeing like updates in 2 weeks for at least 2 years. Let me get this quote from Ryan on there. Quote, the company will provide its partners with a single binary that allows them to choose from pre-qualified set of components or a complete bill of materials. And then every single, basically, instead of having to qualify all the SKUs, Intel will actually, where did it go? Intel will guarantee software updates within 2 weeks of Android open source project updates. And that update support will be given for 2 years after the release of the launch of the device. That's going to be really interesting because it means companies are going to have pre-qualified collections of hardware to look at to put together a device, obviously using an Intel processor. Intel then will provide some pretty significant support for the first 2 years. So there also weren't any partner announcements at IDF. But I would not be surprised if we see a lot of Android tablets, at least experiments with that in the none too distant future. So... Do you hear about Dell's 5K monitor announcement?
Yeah, what a interesting size. You know what? The thing I think that stood out for me was I believe that's a 16:10 aspect ratio. Yeah. And when I'm shopping for monitors, I really don't like how flat 16:9 monitors look compared to the 16:10 design. So for that, I'm thankful. The extra pixels, that's over 200 pixels per inch. So. Yeah. And like a mobile device, the monitor in front of you on a desktop workstation is close enough to where the small pixels really make a difference. And let alone if you're dealing with any kind of photography, everything's in excess of that resolution already, just about. And so having that extra level of pixel density really make for a nice editing display. Granted, if all the other stuff is lined up in terms of color quality but Dell tends to make pretty good monitors, so they tend to resource good components. I've had in the past issues with their TVs of long ago, but that was then. But I've never heard anyone truly complain about, especially the Ultra Sharp series and other Dell monitors in general. Just good quality overall, and 5K resolution, sure. You know, if you need that pixel density. And I'm curious of what will be driving that exactly. Is that display? Right. I'm assuming DisplayPort. Actually, that's the question I have: is how are you driving that? And at what? And I imagine 60 hertz display, but going forward, that's something I'd like to see pushed up to 120 and beyond. But yeah, I think I'm a patient man.
I think they were saying how. Like the 295 X2 should drive it. So it's either, I'm pretty sure it's a DisplayPort on that one. Where did it go?
2 linked DisplayPorts? Somebody said in the chat session. So that wouldn't surprise me. I was thinking dual DVI, but I doubt anybody's doing that kind of madness anymore, at least on consumer displays. So
I would hope
resolution wise, more pixels per inch, the better. I'm not gaming at that resolution on a single graphics card, but you know.
Well, not with Well, a 295 X2 might do it. That's $1,000, essentially 2 GPUs on a single $1,000 board.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find that. Did they actually publish the information? I don't think anybody has the information about what the ports are on that yet. But it's got to be DisplayPort. What else would it be? What else?
That would be my thought. It's such a capable port. Good old DisplayPort.
Oh my goodness!
Why don't all HD TVs have DisplayPort? I don't know. There's the other question. They could have did that instead of waiting for HDMI 2.0. And
does DisplayPort support HDCP?
Oh yeah, and audio. 7.1 audio, lossless. It's all the same. I mean, you can do the cabling. The cabling really doesn't matter. You know what it is? I wonder what the licensing is per port for DisplayPort compared to HDMI. The last time I checked, it's about 4 cents a port for an HDMI port. Versus, when you're going to make 100,000 of something, that 4 cents is a big deal, or give or take a few pennies here and there. So,
I've just checked several sites, and nobody knows whether it's going to be HDMI or DisplayPort. So we will.
It would shock me if it's HDMI, because even at 4K, you're not doing raw color. At 4K, you're doing compressed color, and then the TV or the display device would have to uncompress that. So, if I were going to guess, I'd say it's DisplayPort, as was indicated also in our TWiCH IRC forums, or the chat room, not the forum.
Going to be interesting to see. Asus X99. Oops, sorry.
I was just saying, more pixels, good. Period.
Oh my goodness. We saw a bunch of X99 motherboards and DDR4 RAM vendors at IDF. Maury just wrote up on PCPro.com. Asus X99 Deluxe Motherboard Review. It was funny. We did a $380 gaming PC build on DieTrine a couple weeks ago, and I got thrashed by one person who was like, "How can you still be running a Core i7-920 at home?" And I was like, "Because it's going to cost me like $700 to replace the motherboard, the RAM, and the CPU, to get like a 30 or 50% boost in performance that I don't really need for the vast majority of things I do." But this board, I mean, it's funny. I think I'm curious if X99 is going to be my next board, if I'm going to do something about that in the next year or two. But
I am looking to build a new system.
It's funny. So, DDR4, so there's 8 DIMMs in place on that one. This is one of the more understated designs I've seen in the X99 realms. It is a $400 board. But, basically LGA 2011 V3 sockets, DDR4 memory, a crazy list of ports on the side. So
crap.
Yeah. So well, if you start all the way on the left, that little nubbin all the way on the left side is a USB BIOS flashback, dual Intel LANs, 10 USB 3.0 ports, a dual band 802.11 AC Wi-Fi plus Bluetooth 4.0, 8-channel audio with DTS Ultra PC2 and DTS Connect, 5 PCI Express 3.0, 3-way SLI and quad GPU CFX support or Crossfire support, Crystal Sound 2, which is their super duper audio profile, which includes an EMI protection cover, audio shielding, depop circuit, audio amplifier, crazy collection of Japan-made audio capacitors, another 4 USB 3.0 parts for the front, dual 10 gigabit SATA Express ports, 8 SATA 6 gigabit per second ports, which means this is obviously the motherboard I should be using for the RIP Monster 3000.
I don't know. That's overkill for most people. I mean, do you need dual LAN ports? Do you need to support 3 full-size graphics cards? The next system I'm building will be a micro ATX motherboard,
right?
And in a case that's appropriately sized for that motherboard and almost silent if I can make it so. And it will have a full 16 by 16 slot for PCI Express, but I don't ever plan. I can't imagine going with more than one graphics card, but as long as they have room for at least one SSD, which you can put in anything, you can stick it to the side. That's what I need. But that's gorgeous hardware, no doubt.
Yeah.
So,
and it should
I'm
be.
not complaining. I would like something like, and I'll be honest, I actually use every stinking USB port on my motherboard currently. So having a few extra doesn't bug me at all. Those I can definitely use. I'm always running out of those, or I'm looking for adapters or something. So.
Oh my goodness! So,
but I am itching to build a new system too for the new workstation. I realize the only upgrades I've done over time since I originally built my box are just the graphics card, which for a while there I was replacing just about every year when some new super title would come out, and I was just like, ooh, I've got to be able to turn it up. But I'm not gaming at super high resolutions. I think I have a 1920 by 1200 monitor, and I think I'm running I don't even remember what graphics card I'm running right now, 680. GTX, which isn't even close to state of the art anymore, but it runs everything I'm playing right now really, really well on a single display. So I'm not dealing with surround gaming or multi-monitor setups or ultra high resolution setups. But although I wouldn't mind, I'm currently running 2 24-inch displays. I wouldn't mind squeezing a larger format, maybe that 5K display in here, a 27 or a 28-inch display sandwiched in for triple-headed workstation enjoyment. That I want to do, but maybe I'm not sure if I will need a second graphics card or not for all of that, but good options. And if I'm doing anything, it's probably going to be with the X99 chipset and platform, but holy cow. That thing had Wi-Fi built in too, didn't it? It was crazy looking.
Yeah. Anyway. 802.11 AC, Bluetooth 4.0.
More stuff I don't need, but.
Well, you can dream, right? So Maury gave it a gold PC Perspective Award. His only real complaints were there's no CMOS reset jumper and there's no quote, inclusion of over voltage jumper to unlock voltage potential for CPU voltage in BIOS. Other than that, he said the stock performance was some of the fastest he's seen. It had good overclocking potential. I think they overclocked like 4.5 gigahertz on the processor they ran in there. Yeah, I ran it over 4 hours at a 4.5 gigahertz CPU speed, 2400 megahertz memory speed, and a 4 gigahertz ring bus speed with a 100 megahertz base clock. And with a fairly decent amount of applications running to stress that. Good layout design. They did what they call their mini armor overlay design to protect some of the components. You know, good UEFI BIOS. He was actually, Mike, like me, was excited about the Intel Gigabit Ethernet NICs. But yeah, it's a nice board, and it should be for $400. And everything we're seeing with the X99 boards is $250 to $400. All fairly sophisticated, high-end configurations for super gamers or people doing crazy, awesome stuff with their machines at home, or who just have the money and want the newest stuff, which is nothing wrong with that. The Intel released, I'm trying to, where did it go? Oh, Intel's graphics drivers claim significant improvements. Scott wrote that one up. It's interesting. They're claiming up to 30% more performance in some OpenCL tasks and a 10% increase in games like Batman Arkham City, Sleeping Dogs. They claim double performance out of League of Legends at 1366 by 768. The driver also tunes, quote, conservative morphological anti-aliasing. They claim it looks better than MLAA and FXAA, quote, without performance impact, unquote. Although earlier white papers suggested there would be a 1 to 1.5 millisecond cost on the Intel HD 5000. They also recommend this
applies for some of the notebook users out there who might have integrated graphics in that case. It sounds like this is right up their alley, but it might not apply to those chipsets directly. But
the problem isn't so much whether or not Intel applies it to the chipsets, but because I think they do. The problem is that most laptop manufacturers are so far behind Intel's driver development. Matter of fact, that's one of the first comments on the article. Quote, how many laptop OEMs will have customized the latest Intel graphics drivers, and how many laptops will actually get the driver updates? Exclamation point. You know,
I really do appreciate the notebook manufacturers who go with either AMD or NVIDIA chipsets and allow you to apply the latest monthly updates that come out for those for the mobile side. That's one thing not all manufacturers do. I want to say some of the Japanese notebook manufacturers in particular, for whatever reason, they want to lock you into providing updates only when they say they're available, which you understand that from a support side of things, and it minimizes their costs. But for a gamer, you have there's so many games. It's like, oh, hey, we found a handful of bugs related to this one game, related to our driver. Here's the fix, and let's go. Here you are. And that's one reason that I stick with the PC gaming platform as a workstation so much, or for so long, is that I'm able to update those drivers automatically whenever they come out. And in the case of NVIDIA, their GeForce Experience program actually optimizes all the settings for my games without me having. I used to be one of those people that goes into the games specifically looking for what gives me the best performance, yet the best visual quality at the resolution I'm gaming. Now it's like auto optimize and just go and enjoy and not worry about it all so much. So that's something I would like to see more manufacturers do on the mobile side of things. So it's just open it up. I know there might be issues with thermal and other technical problems where if you expose the driver to whatever the chipset manufacturer wants to do, but at the same point, relax a little on that and make it more available for the folks out there. Or if liability is the problem. I keep in my head, I keep going, I know why the lawyers won't let that happen, but still.
Right. Well, we're talking about completely insane things to do with piles of expensive hardware. NCIX and Linus Tech does 4 single GPUs twice. Scott wrote this up for PC Per. AMD fans, don't tell Team Green, but Linus decided to take 4 R9 290X graphics cards and configure them in quad crossfire formation. Apparently, it was pretty easy to set up. But, quote, throttling and setting up crossfire profiles was a little problematic. When they were finally able to test it, they got a 3D Mark Fire Extreme score of 14,979. And then turned around and took 4 GeForce Titan Black graphics cards and configured them in quad SLI formation. Quote, he had a bit of a difficult time setting up the machine at first, requiring a reshuffling of the cards. At which point Scott really wonders something pretty valid. How would reordering PCI Express slots for identical cards do anything? And after a few driver clashes, it worked, and eventually they got, quote, a 3D Mark Fire Strike Extreme score of around 13,300. So...
And this is Linux-based platforms?
No. This was Linus.
Oh, Linus. Never mind.
Linus Tech just got a hold
Linus
of...
Linus Tech. Oh, geez. Sorry. I missed the first
part. No, it's okay. But yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy.
That's a beautiful looking hardware setup. Not to say I wouldn't want to run something like that, but...
I've bought a number of cars for less money than that collection of hardware cost. I'm just saying, man.
See, that's the kind of hardware you need, though. If you want to be gaming at 60 frames a second at 4K with, you know, all the fancy features turned on as far as video processing goes for PC gaming, at least. But or just some straight up crazy modeling. I know some friends who do scanning for a living, laser 3D scanning systems, and they can't build systems fast enough or big enough to handle what they do in terms of just image data capture and data processing. So, but still. That is pretty nice looking. I'm not dealing with multiple graphics cards. I want to ask Ryan this, but I believe he's still encountering issues even with today's setups with modern titles, where either you end up with some hitching artifacts or other. God, that's a fun game, and I was just playing that the other day, and. Is it worth the extra hassle? I mean, I guess in some cases, if you're going to be gaming, if you want to game at a really high resolution, you do need the horsepower to do it. So, for me, it's just not worth it. As long as, I don't know. I keep thinking it's like, well, you could simply just reduce the resolution and still enjoy all the eye candy. And with a 4K monitor, you could just set it to, a quarter of the resolution, or just leave it at 1080p, and that would scale really nicely. And,
I have a collection of monitors right now from Dell and for testing, and there's a 1080p, a QHD, and a 4K monitor, and it's such a strange feeling to go from one to the next and to watch, like a 750 Ti that just kicks ass on 1080p is just not looking so awesome by the time you get up to 4K. But when you start talking about like each of the GPUs you need to run something costing more than the machine you do most of your gaming on, it starts to get interesting. We should take a moment. We got a bunch of viewer questions if you're in the chat room or if you're following along on Twitter. Twitter apparently is a word I cannot remember how to say these days. Do us a favor, fire out a question. Right now, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, ladies and gentlemen, iFixit.com. Enter the code TWiCH. If you don't know what iFixit.com is, you probably haven't watched too many of our programs. It's the free online repair manual for everything. They got more than 10,000 repair guides for everything from electronics like your smartphone, your tablet, your game console, your home appliances, clothing, even your bike. If you heard about the Moto 360 having an unusual battery, maybe something that was smaller than spec, you probably heard about it because iFixit does teardowns. They take apart the most amazing new hardware and figure out how easy or difficult it's going to be to fix. It's really, really cool. And what they did is they decided to take their repair manuals, which started with the parts they were selling to fix primarily Apple stuff, and then opening it up to all sorts of different platforms. Really good instructions to fix your stuff. Shattered iPhone screens, red ring of deaths on your Xbox, how to put a new battery in your cell phone. iFixit has you covered with parts, tools, and repair guides, and they make some really, really good tools. Robert actually has a set of the ProTech Tool Kit. It's pretty awesome. 70 tools to assist you with any mod, malfunction, or misfortune that comes your way. That's the 54-bit driver kit that is in the ProTech Tool Kit.
And I absolutely love it. And I use it all the freaking time. And the iFixit website, my brother just fixed his Nexus 7 with a shattered screen that was the first place I directed him to. And he's like, you know what? That was pretty easy. And he got it up and running again. So I was pretty happy. But this is good kit. And I love the magnetic nut driver. Yeah, there we go. It's a little better than my
Phillips
hand
bits,
modeling.
the stupid Pentalobe bits that Apple puts on stuff, tri-wing bits for video game consoles, the legendary triangle bit used in McDonald's toys.
Really?
And that's what that's actually is in there for. And can you show the flexible extension out of the kit? I love that thing when you're trying to get screws out of the dark corners of builds.
Oh, let me pull out these two pots. This part goes right into there, and then you're able to you can hold it. It's actually it's twistable even as you're gripping it, because the outside sleeve allows it to continue rotating even if you have to get into a crazy angle.
Yeah. And
you probably can't see that actually turning. I could put a bit in it. You know. There we go. Now I'm cooking with Crisco. Oh, jeez.
Which is the thing to use for donuts, I might add. So that basically, it's a nice driver. It's an amazing collection of bits. You have to have something really unusual to not have it show up in that collection. And that 54-bit driver kit, which is also available separately, is included in the ProTech Toolkit. It's actually used for everybody. People like me who probably should only be allowed to run chainsaws, to the CIA and the FBI. Technicians everywhere use the ProTech Toolkit. It is good stuff. Look, let me remind you, even if you don't have a ProTech toolkit, you need to be able to fix things, and iFixit is a place where you can go learn how to fix things yourself. And if you want to pull together all the tools you need to do a lot of crazy electronics repairs, electronic static discharge safe precision tweezers, the bit kit, anti-static wrist straps, spudgers of all types, metal and plastic. It's $65, backed by a lifetime warranty, and it's people have used it for everything from fixing eyeglasses. I've used parts out of it to fix cars. With iFixit, folks, you can fix it yourself. Visit iFixit.com/twit. Get yourself free step-by-step guides. Get the tools and parts you need from iFixit.com. And if you enter in the code TWiCH when you check out, you'll get $10 off any purchase of $50 or more. That's iFixit.com/twit. Use the code TWiCH. And we want to thank iFixit for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. Shout out to everybody in the chat room, including Scott Michaud, who's in there. And I'm trying to figure out, we had at least one question in there. Patrick should never be allowed to run a chainsaw.
Dark in this room. My apologies.
I should point out that I was actually running a chainsaw alone when I was 13 years old. So
I grew up in the boonies. My dad used to his prized Blazer and let me drive it around when I was 8 years old. As long as I didn't hit anything, he was cool with it.
Oh my goodness. Web 9959. Oops, sorry.
No, nothing. I was just say the benefits of being out in the middle of nowhere. It gives you a little bit of freedom sometimes.
It's good to be 12 years old driving a dump truck.
Yes.
Ask me how I know. Which, yeah, I got to figure out where I'm going to teach Seamus how to drive a dump truck. Web 9959 says, I need a good color accurate monitor for under $400. Good for photo editing. You may not have picked it up earlier when we were talking about Dell's 5K monitor, but both of us are pretty big fans of Dell's monitors. And if you're looking for a deal on a Dell monitor, this is not a paid advertisement. This is an actual place. I bought several monitors. The Dell Outlet is a pretty good deal. They're basically, they're mostly people buy something and their husband says, no, return it. You're not allowed to have a new gaming monitor, or, somebody over orders too many monitors for a corporation or something. But the idea is really simply go to the Dell Outlet and you see what's in stock.
If you do a lot of color work, though, consider a monitor that goes beyond sRGB as far as the gamut coverage goes. You want something as close to, like, say, Adobe RGB, a wider color gamut. But beyond that, any monitor can be improved quite a bit by picking up one of those $100, $200, $300 calibration kits that can create a monitor profile. Without a doubt, any monitor at any price point can be improved with one of those tools. And I use some pretty nice software to do that on my own monitors, but it can take an average monitor and make it really, really good. Or if you're using a notebook, they work on that hardware as well. And that would be a good thing for me to round up, are some of the more affordable options out there. I know the guys at X-Rite offer good hardware specifically for getting your monitor in line. Now, if you're trying to get your printer to match the monitor, that's a little more complicated. I'm talking about just simply getting the monitor itself, so that what's coming out of it is as close to real life as you can get it. That is doable. And also the folks over at SpectraCal have affordable entry-level packages for getting PC hardware up to speed. But it's being able to create one of those color profiles on a computer that's really nice, because it's a semi-automated process. You don't really have to get into the arcane bits of the monitor, especially if the software and the hardware you're using can directly control the monitor, it can really go a long ways toward making any display look better.
Which is a good thing. It's kind of interesting. I'm trying to think who else has been doing really good work with monitors lately. We've seen some good stuff from Samsung. It's interesting because we're still at that point. Well, it's kind of crazy. Like 1080p monitors, like nice 1080p monitors. You know, it's like a 24-inch 1080p monitor is under $170 now. You know, I'm looking at Newegg.com. It's like Asus, Acer, LG. I
want to say the Dell Ultra Sharp monitors are usually the ones that offer
fantastic.
the color gamut too. So if you're looking for something that's not just spitting out a repurposed TV monitor or a TV, an LCD for televisions, generally you pay a little bit more for that. But yeah, as you can see, the price points, NEC arguably makes some of the finest displays for superior color matching and for color performance. But again, those are on the upper end of the price tiers in my humble experience. So, but again, a $100, a $200 calibration kit that will work across multiple displays that you own can, especially if it creates color profiles for monitors, that'll go a long way toward taming an unruly display that you may be dealing with right now. For me personally, on the gaming side of things, I really want one of these new G-Sync enabled 144 hertz or 120 hertz or greater monitors that are coming out later this year. That's really what I'm waiting for. I'm kind of over 60 hertz displays in general for PC use. That's where I miss the CRTs in the sense where at least we could get up to like 72 and 85 hertz. Now that I'm never going back to a CRT, but I would like those refresh rates back. So those displays too. Currently, there's a kit, I believe you can mod a monitor to get the G-Sync performance and the features of that with NVIDIA hardware. But I want that built in from the factory, and those are apparently coming soon. So hopefully by Christmas.
That would be nice.
And more competition, so the price comes down. So.
Man, it's interesting. Yeah, if you want to get, we've talked about the Cat Leap monitors on the show, the ones that are available, sort of drop ship from Korea, but from eBay. Those have gone up in price a bunch. But Monoprice has 27-inch WQHD monitors in stock for $460. HDMI 1.4, VGA, DisplayPort 1.2, DVI. They do their stripped down one. I don't think is currently available. They've got a 30-inch QXGA monitor, which is 2560 by 1600. That's up to about $700, but it's tempting. Yeah, the QXGA for $576. Man, that 27-inch QHD monitor is really tempting. A touch higher than your budget. People really like it. I don't know how accurate the colors are, but as Robert likes to say, calibrate it. Calibrate any monitor, and it'll look better.
At least get the basics, the brightness and contrast set properly, and you can do that yourself, no problem. Also, Monoprice is putting out a bunch of home theater gear now, everything from speaker systems to sound bars and other things. And I believe they're announcing some stuff at CEDIA happening in Denver right now, or happening this week. I want to say the announcements are coming then, or have already occurred. But if you're shopping for just about anything, it's worth at least pinging the Monoprice website just to see what the heck they're up to, because I'm always shocked. It's like they offer that now, or that category of product, or whatever. And I'm like, it's not just HDMI cables and speaker wire anymore. It's quite a bit of stuff, and quite a bit of good stuff. And you can buy a lot of that stuff through Amazon too. So if you just have to buy it through Amazon, you can pretty much buy the entire Monoprice store through them. So that's
people live for using Amazon more. We got an interesting tweet from Calder Huntington who says, App after Norton, Robert Harrod, what home theater PC benefits will there be in Broadwell? And I got to be honest with you, I was looking at the Gigabyte Bricks units this morning, which are not Intel NUCs, but are very similar to the Intel NUCs in that it's a little tiny box with a processor, some memory, the ability in at least the step up from the least expensive one to put a 2.5-inch hard drive in there. Really good base unit for home theater PC. There really isn't much going from Haswell to Broadwell to whatever comes next. With Haswell, Intel fixed most of the issue. Well, they fixed the 24 frames per second issue that had plagued the Intel graphics, right? So that's the first thing there. With Broadwell, it's going to be more efficient, it's going to be more powerful. But the reality is, you only need so much power to decode a Blu-ray or an MPEG-4, or insert your favorite video encoding format.
It almost doesn't touch the CPU at all. You're lucky if even the most energy efficient a dual core chip would be the only requirement I would have, just for smooth performance for a variety of tasks in a home theater environment, so that there is at no point a hitching experience or a stutter experience if you're trying to navigate a menu while a film is playing in the background, whatever. It's that at least that dual core experience tends to smooth that out. But otherwise, I go for the most energy efficient processor that's currently available. Should do just fine. And you're going to dig it. There's so much you can do with home theater PCs. They are just about perfect in terms of being able to play anything you want, with some limitations. If you're dealing with cable and satellite subscription services, well, you can do your own cable box now, and you have been for quite a while. But at the same point, I know having a PC in the living room isn't for everyone. So. But for general playback, I use mine more than I ever thought I would, and heck, I'm still using game consoles as well as probably my streaming box of choice, just because, especially in the PlayStation platform, I've really been pleased over the long term with how good the app quality is in general for updates and services and features. They seem to play. The developers seem to play and test within the console environment as much as anywhere, and they often try out their latest and greatest ideas there as well. And it's kind of nice to be able to have that at your fingertips in a relatively bulletproof platform, which I think goes above and beyond. But I'll be honest, I don't abuse my home theater PC. It's not a system I'm constantly installing and uninstalling stuff on. And because of that, Windows stays remarkably stable over the long term if you're not just rifling through it constantly. And unlike me and my Android phone, my last Android phone at least, where I'm loving just customizing it and modding it and tweaking it. I finally broke the damn thing. But as far as Windows boxes go, you can keep those pretty damn stable over the long term if you just get your software settled, stable, and leave it alone. You don't need the driver updates, and not many anyway. But
no, it's interesting. Like I guess Fanless Tech came up with a leak on the processors for the next generation Intel NUCs, and it's funny. Like I look at the Broadwell stuff, and it's You
mentioned that 24 hertz issue though with Intel graphics chipsets, and the box I use has an Intel chip in it. If I ever set it to 24 hertz, it nothing really plays back properly. That
is fixed.
I get sync issues. Yeah, that's something I wouldn't mind building a new home theater PC just to swap out that old GPU for a newer one. But that's something I could also just drop in a very low power graphics card and get around that issue as well. But
you get like a $60 GPU these days. I have one you might look at, but it's interesting. I mean, like, I got to say there's nothing that really stands out on Broadwell other than it should be, more power for less wattage in a similar package. And it's going to be a while before it shows up unless you're buying a Broadwell notebook. So it's interesting. It's good stuff. Do we have any last questions? I think we're good with that one. I think the chat room has gone mad. Let's I can't take my eyes off the OLED box in the background. Side of fries, notice that. Is that the LG?
Yeah, the EC9300. I'm working on that right now. I should have a review finished by Monday. And then that box arrived in a pristine condition, I may add, and it's a very well-packed TV. And I gotta say, they give you a nice assortment of 3D glasses in the box, including clip-on glasses. I do have to say I'm not a fan of at least 1080p passive technology, because you are literally getting half resolution to each eye. But the glass options are just so much better, and because you're not dealing with active LCDs or active shutter glasses on your LCDs. But yeah, these are, I'm sure. Anyway, but this is just one pair. They include like 4 in the box. But the big deal with OLED really is how bright it can be. LCD-like brightness with just inky dark black levels. And currently, all the OLEDs I'm aware of are curved screens, which really no big deal. It does make wall mounting a little more of a challenge because they tend not to have all 4 points on the back for putting your standard VISA mounts on them, but they're still wall mountable. And I'm going to be testing tonight motion performance. I'm going to do some color measurements on it. But that EC9300 is currently the top rated, visually speaking. It tied with Samsung's 55-inch OLED that came out last year. And this one's now down to $3,500, which if you watch that price progression from a year ago, 15,000 roughly, 6 months ago, about 8,000, and now we're at 3,500. 1080p OLED in another year will be mainstream. You're going to have a lot of people with those panels out, and a lot of companies are quickly jumping to 4K or UHD OLED as the new premium panel. And you're going to see those. LG just announced their 65 and 77-inch models will be out in about 2 months before Christmas. So if you've got the coin to spend and you want to be first on the block and you got 10 grand to 25 grand to part with, you can have a 65-inch to 77-inch OLED in your living room if you so choose. But it's good to finally see them here, and overall, I'm pleased as punch. Actually, this LG also has the WebOS interface, which I got to say it looks good. I'm still not convinced that the performance is quite there, but that's something I'm just scratching the surface on it. So I'm more concerned with image quality at this point than just about any other aspect of it. And for that, it's pretty phenomenal.
More scratching.
Yes, it's so nice.
Oh my goodness!
I gotta say, for a thin TV, the audio built in is actually pretty decent. Samsung and LG have worked really hard on their flat panel designs this year. I've noticed incorporating cool waveguide technology and other things just to produce a decent sound experience if you are in fact using the speakers built into a TV. But I'm running a Yamaha AVR with a 5.1 surround sound system in my living room, and that always comes on. I have no TV speakers enabled unless I have to listen to them, and that's just a must. And just a quick plug: Monoprice actually has a 4K switcher now for like $80 that I'm using. That works great. I just have to say I'm outputting one single source to multiple displays, and you consider that other companies can charge you, $800, $900, $1,200 for a similar product. This is a 1x4 amplifier switcher. It's not an HDMI switch per se. This is just simply amplifying it out to multiple displays at once. But the thing works great. And I had an older 1080p version of this product that it sometimes synced up okay. Sometimes you'd have to disconnect and reconnect stuff and power it down, power it back on. They seem to have a lot of that stuff straightened out now. So if you need that kind of display, enhancement or the ability to pipe the same source out to multiple displays, take a look at that Monoprice product. That works just great.
Cool. We got a question from Eric about keyboards. Says, hi, I'm in need of buying a new keyboard since the keys in my current one have begun to fall off. That's a bad feeling. I've never had a mechanical keyboard before, but since I type a lot, it sounds like it would be worth spending money on one. So my question is, which is the best mechanical keyboard for typing? Do you guys have any favorites that I should take a look at? My only demand is that it should be backlit. It's really funny. It's funny. We did a die try-in where one of the people in our office, Cisco, who is a Counter-Strike fiend and a cable organization obsessive compulsive, who saw one of my machines, left a Post-it note on it that said, "This is wrong. This is not acceptable." And then I was like, you know what? If you want to manage the cables in my machine, go for it. So he rebuilt the machine to manage all the cables. And he has been drooling over the fact that I have an IBM Model M keyboard, which is the classic, IBM key, sort of optimized key. So I think the equivalent to that these days would be a Cherry MX Blue switch. And what you're looking at, that article right there from Alan Henry on Lifehacker, is awesome. It's how to choose the best mechanical keyboard and why you'd want to. And there's different keys in mechanical keyboard, and it gets a little crazy, right? Cherry MX Blacks, which are very smooth. They don't have a bump the way some of them do. Red switches are super, super light in terms of feedback to push it all the way down. Browns have a bump kind of at the middle of the key, so you don't actually have to press the key all the way down to register a key press. So you don't actually have to press the keys all the way down. What you're looking at right there is the Max Keyboard keycap Cherry MX Switch O-Ring Pro Sampler Tester Kit. That sells for $21. If you want to get crazy, you can buy one of these and see what that feels like. Michael Hand just bought the other one there. There's like an $11 version that's a Cherry MX Switch that does Cherry MX reds, blacks, blues, and browns, and actually lets you feel the difference. It sends you some row rings that you drop in there if you want to play around with the sound dampening rubber O-ring. But those are really, really cool.
Say I'm using the brown on mine. I have a DOS keyboard, DAS keyboard, the Model S,
Those are
the one that's completely blank. I have no, all the keys are completely blank, and I love that. But the browns are the most clicky. I believe they're the most clicky. And as long as you're not, see, you can pretty much hear that thing go. But the beauty is, I think, maybe step back one level where you still get most of the click feel, but a lot less noise. If you have to deal with, loved ones or an office environment, it's too loud for most folks. But at the same point, for just me and myself in a room typing away, I absolutely love mechanical keyboards with that click switch the way it is, and that you should not sacrifice on. Although the Corsair RGB keyboards, I don't know if they ever are those out even, but if I was looking at that, they offer cherry switching as well, in addition to being RGB LED backlit. So there you go, classic.
That's an IBM Model M.
And what is it? Tech keys.
The Vengeance K70, which is the name for the RGB keyboard from Corsair, 16.8 million ways to win. That's the one with the basically programmable LEDs under every single key. Burke, I just put the link to that in the show notes. That
thing about these mechanical keyboards too, you can customize them. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, it's gone. It's no longer available at Amazon. Did they sell them all out? Sorry, sad. I'm very sad.
It's a sad day.
Hey,
quick shout out though to techkeys.us. It's a friend of ours, Brad Agdern. He knows more about keyboards than everything I've learned about keyboards. I learned from Brad, and he also does custom keycaps. So if you really want to tweak your keyboard, make it look great, it's great. And he also has a selection of keyboards there too, so you can check out lots of good stuff. That guy's into keyboards, and it's and the customization of said keyboards. So
that crazy. Keys. Yay, Brad! That keyboard with the programmable RGB backlights, that's actually available for $170 now from Corsair, which might be a bit much for a lot of people who have never used one. But I should also point out the ones for the IBM Model M, the kind of the classic mechanical keyboard, the ones that I love so much. Those are Cherry MX Blue switches. Those might be on yours. Do you have a Model S Professional or Ultimate? If you have the Model S Professional from DOS or the Model S Ultimate, those are blues. Those are the ones that are very noisy. As Robert pointed out, my wife used to go nuts. Had to like work in the garage or the other end of the house to use that. The Razer Black Widow uses those. That is the classic, amazing, ultimate touch typing keys. Yeah, those are fantastic if you write for a living. And then if you want to get completely unhinged, strengthen your fingers, there's Cherry MX Green switches, which are basically, that's probably a little closer to the IBM Model M when it was brand new. But that's a really good article from Alan Henry. He does some great stuff on Lifehacker, and that'll give you an idea of what you're looking at. And if you can find a computer store near you where you can test some of these, it's a great idea. You can try the mechanical keyboard, but pressing one single key, those little samplers that are for sale on Amazon, is not nearly the same thing as typing, but on a big keyboard.
So noisy. But so good.
And Scott has my back in the chat room. Scott Michaud, Patrick Model M is not Cherry MX Blue. They're buckle spring. Technically, they're not mechanical. They're capacitive, but they feel so similar, Scott. I swear they feel so similar. And Loquacious One says, I ruin keyboards pretty fast enough. Mechanical keyboards are much more difficult to kill, at least in my experience.
I'd like an RGB keyboard, especially if you could do like custom colors or custom backlights for specific key areas. Like say the F keys are all like a red, and then you could have like your WASD keys be green. And if you could do that kind of customization on like a per key level, I think that would be pretty cool. But otherwise, I don't really look down at my keyboard much, so I could care less really what color it is overall. But although that looks pretty, that is a good looking keyboard. So I can't really custom backlights for the win.
Custom backlights for the win. I'll second that.
For the bling.
We got an email from Patrick about mineral oil. It says, I was wondering if mineral oil could be used instead of water due to leak concerns. I've seen the full immersion of systems for cooling and was wondering if mineral oil would make a good substitute. Does mineral oil transfer heat as well as water, and would be the pumps for water cooling work on mineral oil? I built a mineral oil PC from a kit. Were you around when I did that?
Oh, yeah. That's what they fill transformers with that you see hung up on the pole. There's a reason those things are filled with mineral oil.
Yeah, mineral oil. I have
one of the reasons. Man,
it was funny because
what a mess.
That was the nightmare, because the mineral oil somehow I brazenly assumed that the mineral oil trashed the power supply on that, because the power supply on that, which was a really nice power supply, died a month after we built that. And of course, to pull it all out, we had to pull everything out of the mineral oil to get the connector off and clean it out and put the fresh power supply in there, which has just sort of dropped one sort of cable in there and the extra bits it needed. It was a horrible experience. I have some serious questions. Unless you have a huge volume of mineral oil or a pretty badass pump, because water pumps do not pump mineral oil well, to say the very least.
Just overclocking, or what else?
Well,
I guess
the heat generated is so, like, if you go to the Puget systems when they built one, it's non-conductive, so it shouldn't short the systems out. That was a kit they sold for a while. They're doing it to their self-kit. The heat from the PC is transferred to the mineral oil at a rate of over 5 times better than air. The trick is to dissipate the heat, and they came up with a pretty crazy radiator on that. If you put a radiator on it and you have a burly enough pump to pump the mineral oil, it'll do a really, really good job. If you don't have a burly enough pump to pump the mineral oil, it will destroy, it'll probably trash your water pump, and it will not cool well. So if you either have a huge volume of oil or a really badass pump, it'll work. I've just gotten a notice that we are way late, and we are going to destroy OMG Craft. So we have to stop. I just realized it's a half an hour later than I thought it was. So, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Heron from HeronFidelity.com, and occasionally we're lucky enough to get him on TechZilla. I'm Patrick Norton, TechZilla.com or DieTryin.com. We want to thank you for watching this episode of This Week in Computer Hardware. Mr. Ryan Shrout should be back next week with some awesome new news from a here-to-be undisclosed GPU manufacturer. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week, man.
Adios, amigo.